Now we would move on to the strategy of Polish champions. In other words, we will discuss how Polish companies would like to implement the Polish hydrogen strategy. I think that it will be an interesting clash of information that we've just heard. Now we will get information from the Polish companies declaring the greatest number of hydrogen-related projects. The first person will be Mr. Jacek Smyczyński, representing PKN Orlen. As you might have noticed, especially when Jorgo has talked, Orlen was mentioned a few times owing to its commitment to the projects revolving around hydrogen. I believe that what we will hear from Jacek will be of great interest, particularly in the context of what has just been said by Tudor and Jorgo. So, Dr. Smyczyński, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I do hope I can be heard, I can be seen, because I have had certain technical difficulties connecting. Unfortunately, your background, there's a window in your background, so the picture is not perfect. Well, unfortunately, these are my working conditions now. At least it's a sunny day, I suppose. So, you're invited to take the floor and have quite a challenge, actually, because what Jorgo has said that raises the bar. Also for your company. Well, I wanted to share with you a presentation. Hopefully you have it on your screen. However, I'd like to tell you more about development directions when it comes to hydrogen-based transport from our perspective. So, very briefly, just give me a second.
Okay. So,
are these only plans? Well, not quite. We've already started acting very energetically. We're a leader when it comes to acting in Hydrogen Alliance. We became a member in Hydrogen Europe, so we do have a strong, active impact on shaping the hydrogen policy in the EU. So without waiting for further development in Poland and whatever happens in Poland, we've decided to independently on the renewable energy sources development in Poland to build systems, transport systems based on hydrogen. Of course, we'll have certain areas surpluses, but in order not to waste time and to catch up with the West, to remain a partner for the West, we would like to initiate the process ASAP. That's why we've started certain actions. We want to adopt a holistic approach, not be selective here, because the selective approach of building a single station just to show that you can, I mean, this has been done, but we basically created 6 project blocks: production, logistics, distribution, regulations and financing, R&D, and communication. Of course, these technical issues are pretty much well known. Of course, it's a question of scale as well, but generally they allow us to move through that phase. What's important for us, and on this slide I wanted to present to you that we do have an actual plan, but going back to what I thought, to my thought, what's important for us is it's really important to have right regulations in Poland and proper subsidies. This deals basically with 3 aspects: that it's lack of regulations dealing with use of hydrogen transport, relatively high TCO costs. So here we need support when it comes to building the market, and lack of fuel infrastructure of hydrogen-powered vehicles. Here we need a wide information campaign communicating the advantage of hydrogen as the leader among these low-emission fuels. Now, going into regulations, we can see in PKROL the areas which have to be solved. First of all, quality of the product, also implementing quality standards for hydrogen. The second issue, the technical requirements for fueling stations. It's also very important when we start building these stations, how we should obtain environmental permits, construction permits, all the other technical aspects, meteorology, that is how to measure it all, using what method, whether it's a flow method or weight-based method, it all needs to be clarified and completed. So we are fighting for it, we are lobbying for it, we want to start moving right away without waiting for green hydrogen. So it's also very important to classify the residual hydrogen or the waste hydrogen, so we don't have to wait for surpluses of green hydrogen and so on, because that time is of importance. What's very important is also classification of biohydrogen produced from biomethane. Potentially in Poland we could be a very large producer. As far as the costs, if we could divide into the parts, the cost of infrastructure and the costs on the side of several governments, is the cost of actually purchasing the buses as the infrastructure cost. We know that the price in Germany, the West, is about 43 zloty per kilogram. On our side, based on what we hear from the self-governments, we know that their expectations are different. They want it to cost 20-23 zloty, so it would be similar to the price of diesel. Perhaps this is not going to be quite the price of diesel, but we would like it to be shaped more or less at this level. Moving on, I've mentioned the costs, the 43 zloty. This is the price which, on this scale of the project, stems from the scale. I mean, that's what the price of hydrogen should be. Our self-governments, local governments, expect it to be similar to diesel, maybe a little bit over diesel, 24 zloty per kilogram or so. So of course, they realize that high capex is very important, connected with the building of installation of hydrogen cleaning installations. So it's necessary at this phase of building the structures to subsidize these initial steps. We're looking at it. Our production units are also in Czechia. We see how Unipetrol is approaching it, how the Czech Ministry of Transport is approaching it. We know they're subsidizing these stations at the level of 85% of qualified costs. So we are expecting, and we are going to lobby to receive in Poland similar level of support. As I've mentioned, the costs also exist on the side of hydrogen vehicles. Without going into details, after business analysis, it seems that these costs should be at the level of about 70% of the purchasing cost of vehicle. So that, I'm not saying that it should cost as much as a diesel-powered vehicle, but it should be competitive in relation to battery-powered vehicles, which are operating mostly in cities these days. Now, why am I mentioning public transport? Well, there's a number of aspects here. First of all, this creates a tremendous chance for building an economy based on hydrogen. Buses, policy of using zero-emission buses in their fleet basically forces the self-governments to have 10% until 2030, then 30% until 2028. So we've carried out a theoretical project simulation about 10 cities, so you can see what sort of potential this. Self-governments present a client who would purchase hydrogen on continual basis, and of course the infrastructure would have a chance to develop in time. And also not without importance is the social aspect, the environmental aspect. We know that the buses that we have, especially the older ones, diesel-fueled ones, are something that is not perceived very favorably because, well, their impact on the environment is very clear. So I would also say that it's not just buses, not just roads, but railways represent a very high potential, and together with the manufacturer of trains, of railway cars, but also with Peugeot and PKP, we are starting to cooperate so that as soon as possible we can build an economy in railways, an economy based on hydrogen. Here you have the phases that we proposed. First of all, building the first locomotive, first engine, maneuvering engine powered by hydrogen. Here we are going to gather experiences in operating such an engine. And the second phase is actually building initial railway lines, local lines. So, summing up, Poland faces a tremendous chance to be an equal partner for the Western Europe in implementation of hydrogen-based systems. Orlen, as the leader on the market of traditional fuels, we do have a lot of tradition, a lot of experience. We have our brand. We have sufficient size, it seems, to be a natural candidate for being a leader in introducing hydrogen to transport in Poland and in Central Eastern Europe. Not without importance is the fact, and let me underline it once again, is the pace of development, especially in the first years of development, is obviously connected with subsidizing, supporting financially the products. We know very well that these are maturing technologies that are small scale now, so building a system from the ground up creates huge business risks. So support from EU or domestic institutions is very important. It guarantees the success, or at least it mitigates the risk somewhat. I would also like to say that we have a huge role of self-governments in this initiative as a lever which will help in dynamic development of hydrogen transport. Our talks with self-governments, which we're conducting, are showing just how important the dialogue is, the dialogue between the receiving partner and the supplying partner. So this is frankly the only chance for success, frankly, to get self-governments involved so they become partners, so that the know-how and the awareness, environmental awareness, when it comes in economy based on hydrogen, is as high as possible. And the last sentence, in announcing our program of gaining a position on the market of alternative fuels, we treat it as a strategic project. Nobody's thinking about quick profits on investments. Our goal is to position ourselves as leader as the leader in hydrogen-based fuels in decades to come. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much. Even Mr. Jorgo presented your leader position. He suggested that companies in Poland, nitrogen companies, also mentioned your name by name. He mentioned that Polish companies should really strive to use green hydrogen in refinery production as one of the basic functions. So I have a question to you, a somewhat different one though. Let me ask you whether you've considered, after starting offshore wind farms, storing of energy in the form of hydrogen, and first of all, continuing the project initiated by Lotos and PGNiG, the so-called HESTOR project. It's that is storage of hydrogen in salt caverns. Well, let me start with HESTOR. I don't want to go into details due to the position and of our companies and the ongoing dialogue. There is only so much I can say, but it's a project of extremely high potential. It's very good that it has demonstrated the steps that Lotos have taken so far, have demonstrated that it's technically possible, that we are in Poland and in fact quite ready technically to use the salt caverns. Of course, it's a question of economy, it's a question of the supply of hydrogen in order to store it in salt caverns. So that's the first part of your question. Now, the offshore farms, and generally speaking, RAS energy production is developing very dynamically in Poland. At some point, it might be a problem for our energy system, because the system, due to its nature, is not very stable, and a very good stabilizing element of the entire grid, of the whole grid system, would be building tandems, let's say a wind farm, photovoltaic farm, and electrolyzers aiming towards hydrogen production. Of course, hydrogen is connected with storage very directly. Talking about HESTOR, about large energy storage facilities, offshore farms, which just very soon are going to be constructed on the Baltic, Polish offshore farms, and I think Orlen will be a leader here as well, I hope. So without a doubt, these present an important argument for such large storage systems, and we're looking very seriously in that direction. Thank you very much, Director. We do hope that you're going to stay with us and listen to this part, because we are going to continue with questions. At this point, I'd like to invite you to the presentation of Mr. Arkadiusz Seksiński from PGNiG, also dealing with hydrogen.
Szanowni Państwo, witam wszystkich serdecznie. Bardzo się cieszę, że będę mógł się podzielić perspektywą Grupy Kapitałowej Polskiego Górnictwa Naftowego Gazownictwo na obszar budowy gospodarki wodorowej w Polsce. Postaram się przedstawić w kilku zdaniach, jak my w Grupie Kapitałowej PGNiG analizujemy otoczenie zewnętrzne, przede wszystkim to, co się dzieje w Unii Europejskiej w ramach budowania strategii dla
the European Union, especially with concerns building the strategy for hydrogen economy. We are certainly taking a close look at what our government does. We've been cooperating very closely with the Minister of Climate, with the government's plenipotentiary for hydrogen economy in order to shape this environment so that it guarantees the right conditions for power transformation. And then towards the end, I will present a few projects that constitute the hydrogen program of PGNiG that we have launched by the decision of our board in April this year.
Na początek może odniosę się do tego, co jest pewnie oczywistością dla uczestników tej zacnej konferencji, czyli Green Deal, Zielony Ład, wyznacza w pewnym rodzaju nowy, bardzo ważny trend, gdzie wodór staje się bardzo ważnym paliwem przyszłości. W zasadzie osiągnięcie tej neutralności klimatycznej, o której mówi Green Deal, ma być zrealizowane z silnym udziałem wodoru, nawet na poziomie 13-14%
even at the level of 13-14% in 2050. A lot is being talked about the so-called green hydrogen, that is the one that is to be created from RES installations or with the participation of renewable energy sources installations, because here we are talking mostly about converting electric energy by means of electrolysis onto hydrogen. As PCHET2020, in this aspect we also see a certain role for ourselves that I will tell you more about soon. We see that hydrogen economy has been built for 2, even 3 decades in the countries of the so-called old European Union.
I my z pewnością w Polsce
And
mamy
here in Poland
który
we certainly have a certain section
nadrobić, bo
that
jeżeli
we'll
w
need to
sąsiednich
catch up
Niemczech
with.
jest
If
ponad 100
in the neighboring Germany there are over 100 stations
wodorem dla samochodów, to my w Polsce dzisiaj wraz z naszymi kolegami, partnerami, czy to z Orlenu,
with our partners
czy z
today from Orlen or Lotos,
prześcigamy się w deklaracjach,
we are actually
gdzie będzie pierwsza stacja tankowania samochodów
trying to announce where the first station will be located in Poland for passenger vehicles, and I think that the companies having and owning petrol stations will certainly stand a chance to play an important role in developing that part of the game. Now, the increase of the interest with hydrogen being an energy carrier is visible in many countries in the world, including Japan or the US. Well, it is not such a big challenge anymore. We, as Poland, are among the leaders in terms of producing hydrogen, but we are talking here about producing the so-called waste hydrogen. But the Green Deal that I've already referred to, other strategic documents, specify that in this new deal, in the low emission economy, we would like to deal with green hydrogen first and foremost. So it is a natural issue that there are no stations today, and as there is lack of those, obviously, the result is that there are no hydrogen fuel cars on our roads. It is possible that a breakthrough in this respect might first be beneficial to the public transportation. As PCHET2020, we already see big cities or medium-sized cities switching from diesel buses, those that are not necessarily environment-friendly, to those fueled with gas. Last year, every third new bus that was purchased by local authorities or municipal companies was fueled with gas. Today, every other bus, today in 2020, every other bus purchased in big cities is the one fueled with CNG. So we can expect that in the future, perhaps, our roads, our cities will see hydrogen buses too. Transportation is a very important area where hydrogen will play a major role, but it is also power engineering that does not lag behind, and I'm going to tell you more about it. Hydrogen grids, as PCHET2020, we have a Polish company in our structure that is the operator of the distribution grid, and gas networks can be the very place where hydrogen fuel can be stored, for example, in the form of an additive with gas that is distributed by means of these networks. But we need to pay attention to the fact that in Europe and globally also dedicated networks are being built for transporting hydrogen. A planned network like that, planned for 2040, that already looks impressive, is being shown here, with Poland unfortunately being a country where those lines come to their end. Oh, but this is a plan that is likely to be modified if we are still on the lead in terms of producing hydrogen, and provided that we keep on developing the hydrogen-based economy. I would like to point now at the fact that storing hydrogen in gas networks, I'm talking here also on a big-scale storage in salt caverns, can become something that PGNiG will specialize in. If within this conference or during this speech I draw attention to the possibility of producing hydrogen and its application for transportation, a very important aspect is whether we will be able to store this hydrogen in such a way that it can be used in an optimal way. It will never be the case that we will produce the exact amount of hydrogen that is needed, be it for transportation or for power engineering. So let me tell you more now about our hydrogen program, hydrogen agenda that has been a priority one for the board of PGNiG SI. In this program, we pay attention to a few elements that constitute the value chain in hydrogen economy. That is production, from production through storing to the application of hydrogen in transportation or power engineering. Let me first tell you about the hydrogen stations. Undoubtedly for our fuel companies, this will be the area in which we will keep on developing. Our project, Hydra Tank, has been treated as a research one. It concerns filling up stations at our headquarters. We would like to build such a station. For that purpose, we selected a technology supplier, a company that in the company design and build is preparing the entire design and the entire project of the station. Then we would like to carry out tests, real-life tests, and see how filling up the vehicles, passenger vehicles, but also buses and trucks goes at this station, the hydrogen filling up station. An important element of the hydrogen agenda of ours is the New Fuel Lab project. This is a project that broadens the competences of our measuring and research lab. Today, the lab mostly focuses on traditional gas, but the ambition is for the accredited laboratory to offer a range of analytical services, also focusing on hydrogen and other alternative fuels like biomethane, among others. An important research area will be here the purity of hydrogen. A lot is being talked about technical parameters of hydrogen that will make it possible for it to be used in the economy or to be fed up to the gas networks. Of course, we will test the issues concerning the mixture that is combining hydrogen with traditional gas. What is also going to be very important is working out standards and technical norms without which we will not be able to create regulations that will enable the use of hydrogen in our economy. Another very important project is power to gas in grid. This is a topic that is well known in Europe, especially in Western Europe. It is about comprehensive installations, generating hydrogen from hydrolysis, from renewable energy resources. In Wodolanów, we have located this project. A small photovoltaic farm will be created there, so the system enabling the production of electric energy. Next to this farm, we are going to have an electrolyzer that is a device transforming the electrical power into hydrogen. And it is also important to have a storage there so that the production has a stable nature
warunki atmosferyczne,
rather than the one dependent on weather conditions.
No i później to co najważniejsze, po już samym procesie magazynowania,
And after hydrogen has been stored, dried, compressed,
wodoru, najważniejszy proces, czyli jego
the most important process will be feeding an artificial network with it. We would like to build such a network in Odolanów in order to be able to test
bezpieczeństwo, zachowanie
the safety
w takiej sieci gazowniczej.
and the behavior of gas in such a gas network. That will be a demonstrative pilot project that will make it possible, hopefully in the future, to be able to feed hydrogen to gas networks. The real ones. There is a lot of literature that says how much of the hydrogen you can mix with gas. 0.5%, as Dutch data says, to 20% is the data from Leeds. Generally in Europe we talk about the volume between 4 and 8%. Well, anyhow, we would like it to be subject to our tests. I believe that storing hydrogen on a big scale is something that we can specialize in as PCHET2020. We do have our caverns, our salt caverns in Kosakowo, for example, in the Pomorskie Voivodeship. Today many of you represent Pomerania and are physically over Chile. And well, you need to take it into account that comprehensive changes have to be first introduced in the energy sector. So we talk about building 10, 11, 12 gigawatts in offshore wind farms by 2030, as Polish energy policy shows. And also this is proven by the data from the developments of the sector. So we can say that maybe in 10 years' time we already have 5 gigawatts on the Polish Baltic area. It will depend obviously on the accessibility of renewable energy sources. We know that offshore wind farms have many advantages, but there are also certain challenges, or as some say, disadvantages, like a certain degree of lack of control. There's going to be a surplus, especially at night, of electric energy. And that will make it possible on our part to offer the producers of green energy to store the surplus, for example, in the form of the energy carrier, that is hydrogen, with the use of our salt caverns, for example, in Kosakowo. Such a project has been launched. It is a pilot demonstration one located in Mokilno, but the commercial offers will concern our caverns in the Pomorskie region. And now, to finish off with, I would like to return to the topic of not only using hydrogen for transportation, for passenger cars and buses, but also using it in power engineering. I strongly believe that the transformation towards low emission fuels with time will also take into account the use of hydrogen. I'm talking about dual fuel turbines that can burn not only gas but also hydrogen. Also in power engineering, the so-called power sector, I see an enormous potential for the development of hydrogen technologies. Well, obviously today we are talking about hydrogen economy. We are pointing at its assets, but an additional value will be the technologies in this value chain that will be created by or with the participation of the Polish companies, the Polish technological solutions, and I believe that installations such as electrolyzers or technologies concerning fuel cells are those that stand a chance to be created with our share, with our participation, and as PCHET2020 we do want to participate in this process. And well, I hope that I've managed to bring you closer to the plans and ideas of PGNiG. We do want to participate in the development of hydrogen economy, which has been reflected in our agenda that is still open. It can always be extended by some new projects on top of the ones that I've talked to you about. We are still interested in producing blue hydrogen from gas, and this is what we've been doing on internally.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation deals with our cluster, our hydrogen clusters. The strategy of our hydrogen cluster is going to be presented by Mr. Sławomir Halbert, the CEO of the regional trade chamber in the Pomorska region, and within the chamber, Sławek coordinates our cluster and its activities. Sławek, the floor is yours. So, it's a great pleasure to be here with you on behalf of the Hydrogen Technology Cluster to present the cluster strategy. We've heard quite a lot already about why it's important, why we should invest into the development of hydrogen technologies and hydrogen economy. We've known that for many years, and we've known that within quite a sizable group of companies which decided back in 2017 to start the cluster. And the result of our work is the strategy we've prepared. And also, as you have a chance to observe today, the result is also the third international conference dealing with hydrogen and hydrogen technologies organized by our cluster. Cluster is also a member of Hydrogen Europe, so it's a tremendous pleasure for us to have representatives of that institution with us, institution which is supporting us very strongly, first of all, in gaining understanding of hydrogen economy and in our possibilities, and in giving us the possibility to observe what's been happening in other countries that have gained a lot of progress in this field. Now, what motivates us to work in this area? We've already heard all the arguments already, so I'm not going to spend much time on motivation. It's quite clear, but the diagram shows quite clearly about the energy that is required when it comes to hydrogen in transport and in heating buildings. That's over 50% of the entire energy expenditure. So that means there is a lot of future for us. In the next 30 years, our economy is going to transform towards hydrogen. We're all very happy with that. And that obviously encourages us to work very hard, and the cluster will have a lot of challenges to carry out, to take upon. Now, our assumptions are what we base on. First of all, we want to strengthen and create cooperation. We need to work as a group. So this cooperation will be connected mostly in creating cooperation in value chains. We will concentrate on key actions in creating innovative economy and draw on international cooperation. The transformation process, this cooperation and the European connection is a great chance for us. Another chance is building the biggest cluster in Poland. We are well aware that we can use our strong points when we are strong ourselves, when we concentrate on our goals, on what we have to do. So we need to be an organization which is also strong internally. And here I have to say that I'm very happy to have the opportunity to participate in this panel, the panel where we present hydrogen strategies of champions of the Polish economy, because, well, both Lotos and PGNiG are members of our cluster. So I think that we are building our muscles, developing muscle to deal with the hydrogen economy together. Our cluster also has an initial has this internal need to work on to initiate and to create regional ecosystems. Tomek already mentioned that, and I'd like to mention it again. Our program, the Pomorska Hydrogen Valley program, Pomorska Energia Wodorowa. Here we've created first initiatives which can serve as an example for other regions in Poland, and this is how we want to perceive our cluster. And of course, our ambition is to become a key national cluster, and we are going to do everything to become such an institution. Members of the cluster, the members of our cluster comes from various sectors, from chemical, economy, infrastructure, environmental protection, IT, chemical, transport, automotive, and these are not all of them. There are many other sectors which can join us. It shows what sort of an attractive field it is. So we are going to bring competences from very diverse fields, and they will bring together administration, hydrogen producers, other technological companies, which will cooperate this ecosystem, this hydrogen economy ecosystem in Poland. Here we have members of our cluster, all great brands of Polish economy, and also self-governments of the cities of Gdynia, of Gdańsk, are members of our cluster. This is just the start, so we do hope that quite soon we will also be joined by other wonderful organizations. You can also see we have global companies here, for example, Toyota or Yokogawa. So we are attracting attention, and we do think that this bringing together of many companies, many players on the Polish market will definitely create a great environment for the development of hydrogen economy in Poland. The main activities of our cluster, main areas, of course, energy sector, infrastructure, industry, transport. Of course, I could go into detail in each and every one of those, but I think that we are among experts here, and we know very well how to define these areas. Also, automotive sector, also city management, and I'm not just talking about construction of heating systems, but also general using energy, using hydrogen, R&D when it comes to hydrogen technologies, more about that later. And the most important area, which seems to be most problematic at this time, is legislation and the law. If I were to answer the question, what is the biggest barrier to implement efficiently hydrogen technologies in Poland, this is in fact this area. Business people, along with also government officials, technology experts, are ready to start this process. Unfortunately, the law, especially legislation, when it comes to the possibilities of building infrastructure, of building hydrogens, fuel stations, using hydrogen public space, definitely requires creation of regulations so that we can act freely when it comes to our business activities and development. Potential of the cluster, cooperation. And cooperation, I think, my colleagues agree that the strategy should be based on value chains, on creating value chains. Let's take a look at one of such chains. Of course, it's a very long chain, but a very convincing one. It's a chain which starts in production of hydrogen through its storage, transport, distribution, all the way to using hydrogen in particular products or services. I think we will be able to create more chains which will bring together those values, the values that we can introduce into this offer and the potential of the cluster. Nevertheless, please pay attention that here we have a lot of potential areas that can be managed by our members. and when it comes to opening to the economy. So what is our vision? What's our mission? Well, the cluster of hydrogen technologies is the leader of promotion and implementation of hydrogen technologies in Poland and in Central Europe. And this is our ambition. By the way, this is not just the ambition of the cluster, this is the ambition of the members of the cluster. All the companies that have joined us share that vision. Our champions who have presented before me had a chance also to speak about it. Orlen, PGNiG, Lotos, these companies have aspirations to become leaders, not just in Poland, but in the entire region. I'd like to say that we have a vision to be a European cluster as such, because we know that in the future, when we're going to reach for EU funds, we're going to do it together with our foreign partners from Europe. So we're going to cooperate. Thanks to cooperation of Hydrogen Europe, we will be able to cooperate with companies from other EU countries, Germany, Spain, France. Hopefully this cooperation will bring a lot of benefits to all of us. So we want our cluster of hydrogen technologies, which is here in Gdańsk. We want it to be a domestic cluster, a Polish cluster, but also a cluster which is active throughout Europe. Of course, our mission is to initiate activities for developing the importance of hydrogen technologies and creating the future economic and innovation potential of Poland. In that aspect, of course, we are going to implement here our experiences, our technologies, and obviously we have the good of our country at heart. So our mission is to have hydrogen technologies to develop in our country very dynamically. Aside from our vision and mission, we have our main goal, and the main goal obviously is the development of the cluster, increasing competitiveness of its members, also cooperation when it comes to implementation of hydrogen technologies, and cooperation is the key word. This is the essence of our organization as a cluster, also increasing the use of hydrogen in industry. We are thinking here most warmly about green hydrogen, which we can use in energy production, transport, and environmental protection. Obviously, energy security of the country is also very important. We talk about it while taking into account various strategies of development. We have developed on 2040 energy strategy. There's a lot of discussion concerning coal or nuclear energy. We want to participate in that discussion, so that also from the side of hydrogen technologies, we can talk about the energy safety of our country. Of course, the main goal is wide in scope, and it points to many directions. That's why we've prepared 4 strategic sub-goals, so to speak, which are going to accompany us, which are going to demonstrate the direction we should develop in. This is, first of all, building the potential of the cluster. That is a technological platform which will allow us for the development of this cooperation. It's also the promotion implementation of domestic solutions when it comes to hydrogen technologies. The cluster has no ambition to replace our members. Its ambition is to support and help and assist our members, to promote them in implementation, in obtaining financing, in helping to bring together businessmen in creating the best possible conditions for cooperation. This is connected with the 3rd goal, that is development of R&D. Our economy has to be innovative. It has to develop step by step with science, and this is a strategic goal. And the 4th goal, we need to have technological development. This development generally is going to happen if we don't have the right technologies. Hopefully, we'll have a large need here, a large demand for the development of HR, of human resources who will be able to build and maintain and develop this hydrogen infrastructure. This is a very important key component of our cluster. If we were to look at the goals of the cluster somewhat differently, here we see, of course, the platform of the cluster as an expert, also an R&D center, a key cluster, in order to have an impact on our market, in order to bring together the biggest players. Open innovation is another goal. That is inviting for cooperation other entities which can offer interesting technological solutions to our members. That is building a startup environment. We also have a number of very important initial proposals when it comes to cooperation from very young technological companies and investment funds which are interested in cooperation. For example, through such program as Scale Up, which is promoted by the Polish Agency of Business Development, and education, which I've mentioned on many levels. Engineering, technical, also in elementary education level or medium level education level. Here we want to develop consciousness, awareness of the young generation, the awareness of hydrogen technology, of living with hydrogen technology, of learning how to be, how to live with that technology without undue fear, and with a vision of clean environment and numerous advantages which this technology and economic base in hydrogen can bring us all. Organizational structure of the cluster, very straightforward. Our cluster agreement is pretty much a free agreement of all the members. That is, the members create an assembly of cluster members, and from among themselves they choose representatives who sit on the council of the cluster. That is a body which basically on behalf of the members will conduct activity coordinating the cluster, which will be responsible for the entire developmental side of the cluster. We'll also create a council of experts. Here we'll invite people who have exceptional knowledge when it comes to hydrogen technologies, implementation of hydrogen technologies, or other knowledge, know-how, which is going to be essential in developing our hydrogen economy. We also assume we'll have working teams which will deal with particular areas, particular subjects, which will perhaps deal with specific cases of cooperation. The cluster will also create various models of cooperation depending on particular projects that we carry out. We'll have models here which will also bring together the environment, the members who want to cooperate, to have a B+R environment, R&D and innovation, RDI environment. So these are entities which are not going to be in the cluster, but which will offer cooperation when it comes to innovation, so technological startup environment. Here we also expect a lot of models of cooperation. We are not close to any way of functioning. What's important is to be effective, to be able to initiate our projects and to bring them to fruition, to success, to reaching our goals. The cluster was created in 2017. Of course, works at forming the cluster have been going on for a while. So we had the zero phase, where we've started initiating an agreement of about 20-some entities, and these entities basically created the strategy, which I have the pleasure of presenting to you today. This was the zero phase. Right now we are in phase 1 of our development. That is starting the key cluster, which already has its own strategy and new agreement, which will build new relations, new way of looking at the cluster and its functioning in the European economy. Then we foresee the second phase, in which the cluster will create a market for new technologies, for new hydrogen technologies, and the third phase, that is participation in the expansion of this technology. We are convinced that this period of the development of technological market expansion is right ahead of us. So this is the best time for the hydrogen cluster to take the proper place, its proper place as the cluster, which in the near future is going to be a key cluster and which will impact to a substantial degree the development of the market. And finally, not a complete list, but a list which has been defined by us for now. So these are our tasks which we're going to carry out in the tasks. First of all, international activity in cooperation with Hydrogen Europe, first and foremost, to creating a common offer, creating a technological platform, also gaining new members in order to get the status of a key cluster, organizing conferences, for example, such as this one today. We have a strong need to organize such international conference at least once a year. Hopefully there will be much more need for conferences of this type or other conferences, seminars, starting a program of acceleration, setting up a startup system, participating in FERBs, missions, international or domestic meetings. We also have the ambition of increasing our competences when it comes to cluster management here. The coordinator, which is the regional trade chamber of Pomorskie, which I have the honor of presenting as the president of the council, also takes on this task of serving the cluster community and increasing its management capabilities. It's also creating consortiums, research consortiums, creating an R&D center. We have first ideas for such a center, and in the weeks to come, this activity is going to be very actively developed. Also within the R&D, I have to mention that within the cluster we've already started up the Academy of Hydrogen Safety with certification. Here I'm back to Aspen company, which brings the know-how component and the experience component. We're also going to support what I've mentioned before. First and foremost, the knowledge, the awareness of the young generation. We want to reach out to schools, also vocational schools, in order so that we can obtain future professionals which will serve our technological hydrogen sector. A couple of words about our key program, because I cannot just skip over that when talking about cluster and strategy. The Pomorska Hydrogen Valley. About a year ago, actually exactly a year ago, during our second cluster conference, we've signed an agreement creating the Pomorska Hydrogen Valley. The key project here is the Highway to Hell project. It is a project of a hydrogen train which is going to connect the city of Gdynia with the city of Hell. This is our idea to create such a project. Now, parallelly to that action, which we've heard quite a bit about during the domestic session yesterday, we're carrying another action as members of our cluster obtained support for creating to carry out a study created with supplying buses, trains, and also inshore water transport for Gdańsk, Gdynia, Wejherowo, and Tczew. More about that project today during the conference, and the partner of these four cities is the capital group Lotos. And finally, I'd like to thank two people who have supported us tremendously in preparing our strategy. I'd like to thank Mr. Marek Dondelewski for supporting us in preparing the cluster strategy. He's a great expert of tremendous knowledge, and his knowledge has proved itself to be very useful thanks to the created our strategy. And Mr. Rafał Szordykowski as well, a lawyer, deputy chairman of the Regional Economic Council of Pomorskie, and in this legal aspect, without him, we wouldn't be able to prepare the cluster agreement, which today constitutes a strong basis of our shared cooperation. Thank you very much, and I invite you for cooperation on behalf of the cluster and all the members of our cluster community. Sławek, thank you very much for this presentation of what we want to do within the cluster and presenting our strategy. Because we've mentioned the Lotus Group a number of times, I'd like to welcome Director Sylwia Pawlak, which has been dealing with innovation for a number of years, and today she is responsible for innovation in the Lotus Group. She deals with hydrogen products in the Lotus Group, so welcome, Mrs. Director, and we would like to ask you for brief information about how our local European champion as well, what's its approach to hydrogen projects.
Thank you very much. I certainly hope you can hear me and see me. Excellent. Thank you very much for your invitation to this important conference. We are very happy that as the Lotus Group, we have a chance to support this conference that is so important to the community concerning the changes in the market environment and the dynamic growth of the market. The Lotus Group, as an important organization, has been taking up important initiatives whose goal is to strengthen our position in the market of alternative fuels. The group has set a certain direction for its strategic development. These are several directions that make it possible to rationalize our developmental activities, and they make it possible to optimize the expenditure. Alternative fuels are very important to us. They are also inscribed into our strategy, the strategy of Lotus Group for 2017-2022. When we update our strategy, certainly alternative fuels, hydrogen included, will become crucial in the new version of the strategy. But we shall not forget about what is going on in the European market. The hydrogen strategy, designed and accepted in July this year, will set out the directions for the development of hydrogen market. The EU, of course, is aware that in order for member states to follow this path, it is necessary to provide support for those to be developing the strategies, both on the supply and demand end. That is why funds and mechanisms have been assigned and will be allocated to make it possible to create the hydrogen market. From the point of view of the Lotus Group, this is of utmost importance. Currently, the Lotus Group is one of the biggest hydrogen producers in Poland. We are planning to be very active in participating in the transformation of the European Union towards becoming ever greener. And that is why we participate in the initiative of the Pomeranian Hydrogen Valley that has been described a moment ago. We also participate in Hydrogen Europe. We've been active within this initiative since July. The forecasts show that the demand for hydrogen will first apply to the public transportation. That is why Lotus has been signing letters of intent with government local authorities of cities like Gdańsk, Gdynia, Tczew. Soon we hope to sign letters of intent with further local authorities with whom we would like to build a fleet of buses filled with self-fuels, and we as Lotus Group, as potential supplier, are planning to supply hydrogen to those local authorities. We also expect that the development of hydrogen public municipal transport will make it possible for us to generate a critical mass, create sufficient demand for hydrogen that will enable for the development of filling up infrastructure for new markets such as heavy trucks or passenger cars. Using our experience from hydrogen production and that concerning the production and sales of fuels, we are also directing our eyes towards passenger cars and the alternative fuels. Pure Air H2 is the project that we've been running, within which we are going to purify our grey hydrogen in order for it to be the 591, and then we will distribute it to the filling up stations, as well as we are planning to install 2 pilot stations for hydrogen vehicles, one in Gdańsk and another one in the capital city of Warsaw. That will make it possible for us to gather a significant amount of experience that we will benefit from when we build up next stations. We cannot fail to mention our cooperation with scientific institutions within the projects that we've been developing that are to increase the efficiency of producing pure hydrogen. And we hope that owing to this, the hydrogen market will keep on developing dynamically, with us being among the leaders of the Polish hydrogen market. We've been cooperating really closely with the Energy Institute, with its section in Warsaw, and with Professor Jakub Popecki. We've been also cooperating with AGH, the university, and also hope to cooperate with other universities. We are very much open to this cooperation opportunities. We cannot fail to mention the Polish electro energy lines, with which we have signed a letter of intent, and with whom we would like to perform an innovative plan concerning hydrogen that we hope we will be able to present to you soon in greater detail. Owing to the location of the company, we are getting involved, or we are very much willing to get ever more involved into the activities of the Pomeranian Hydrogen Valley. Within this cooperation, we would like to generate the local hydrogen market of the 5.0 purity class, and I hope that this will come to fruition soon. We cannot forget about the challenges that we are facing. The 2 most important ones concern regulation, that is regulating the formal issues concerning the development of filling up infrastructure. As yet, there are no executive provisions or technical requirements for that kind of infrastructure, which makes it difficult to erect filling stations. Lack of regulations and well, this is something that we have already stumbled over when we realized our Pure H2 project. As was the case with electromobility, it is also important here to stimulate the demand. So there are going to be incentives for potential users to get interested in fuel cells and hybrid cars fueled with the use of fuel cells. For that, it is important to design a support mechanism for hydrogen, so for certain entities that will decide to invest both into technologies and into the applications of hydrogen. What else? Well, Lotos wishes to participate very actively in all hydrogen-related initiatives. That is why we are eager to cooperate with all the other parties interested. Thank you very much, Madam Director, for this contribution. You had about the hardest task, because today you worked not only on TV but also in the radio. That means that we were not able to see your face during the last part of your speech, but still, thank you very much. Thank you very much for presenting the plans of Lotos for the nearest future. We certainly keep our fingers crossed for these developments, so that you can launch the Pure H2 project as soon as possible and start implementing the most ambitious plan of obtaining clean hydrogen in our voivodeship. Oh, we can see you again. We are very happy about that. Today computers refused to cooperate with me. I would like to thank you for the support that Lotus provides to our conference. It has been the third year already that you've been the strategic partner, the strategic sponsor of the conference. I certainly hope that you will be the strategic sponsor of the fourth edition of the conference next year. Thank you very much.
Wir befinden uns hier vor unserem neuesten Produkt, dem Fronius Sol Hub. Das ist ein dezentraler Knotenpunkt für Sonnenenergie. Hier im Sol Hub wird Sonnenenergie mittels Elektrolyse in Wasserstoff verwandelt. Der Wasserstoff kann dann für wasserstoffbetriebene Fahrzeuge abgetankt werden oder auch zum Beispiel im Winter rückverstromt werden und dann wieder in die Netze eingespeist werden. Dies ermöglicht Energiegemeinschaftsanlagen, Kommunen, Unternehmen, Logistikern, aber auch Landwirten, ihre eigene Sonnenenergie zur Erzeugung von Wasserstoff zu benutzen und mit diesem Wasserstoff emissionsfreie Logistik herzustellen.
From the very beginning, we feel the urge to move and discover the world. We walk, ride, drive, and travel. We're always on the move to learn, work, relax, keep fit, explore, and of course, to meet each other. When we can't, we confine our very nature. We depend on mobility for ourselves and for moving all those things we need and want in life. We've always been very ingenious when it comes to getting ahead faster, more safely, more reliably, and with greater comfort. Today, we need new solutions for new challenges. This is what drives us. This is why we're so passionate about mobility and always go that extra mile to move beyond what's possible today. We are pioneers in transportation, helping our customers keep the world in motion. As their trusted partner, we create ways to move people sustainably and seamlessly, from the first mile to the last. This is our vision. This is what we're moving toward and beyond.